I DIY'd my own Harry Styles dress from Vogue, and this is how it went. It starts by me having to dye white lace blue since I couldn't find any that matched. So here I am filling up my pot of 7 yards of white lace with water, which I then dyed this unique shade of blue. I actually had a blue reference to go off of, so I was able to find 40 yards of this blue trim, which, as you can see, I am attaching a black trim to that will go along the tiered layers of the skirt. But that is what I used to help kind of guide my blue dye for my dress. Here you can see that I am doing my black lace over the edge of the blue lace. This is a pretty time-consuming process, but I did it this way because I could then just roll it back up on the spool and cut off the yards I need versus cutting the yards and then having to add the black at the time. I just knocked it out at the same time. I did all that while my lace was cooking, and when it was done, it came out this really beautiful shade of blue. And as you can see under the kitchen lights, the trim and the blue lace are pretty close, so we were ready to go for the next day and cutting our fabric. I did not use a pattern for this, so this is all self-drafted, and it is a 3-tiered skirt. So they are 45 inches at the longest, 30 inches for the middle tier, and 15 for the top tier. I did cut them into 3 pieces, 1 for the front and 2 for the back, and I did them on the fold. So we have a 7-inch waist marking here, and then I went down 15 inches. You can make it as wide as you want, as long as your on the fold 15 inches matches the width 15 inches, but do keep in mind that you have to put ruffles on it, so you might not want to make it too wide. I then went ahead and used that top tier layer to use as a pattern to cut that tulle layer that you see peeking out underneath the top tier of the skirt. Assembly came next, and it's pretty straightforward. You're going to do your side seams, but don't close up the back yet because it was easier for you to do the ruffles when it was open in the back. Here you can see I had to add a slip underneath, but as I put the layers over it, you could see that that really worked in my favor. And then the next step was all of the trim. So I prepped the trim by cutting them into 5-yard pieces, and then on the portions of the skirt that were multiple tiers, I ended up just sewing them all together into one section since I noticed they all met at one point. I felt like this was a hack that was really easy to do, and it made it super easy when it came to finally gathering and sewing them onto the dress. For the tulle ruffle, I used my fork and a 6-inch strip of tulle. In hindsight, I probably should have done 2 6-inch strips of tulle, but it came out pretty good anyways. What I liked about this project is that the raw edges were actually part of the feature, so you don't have to worry about hiding those, but you do want to make sure they kind of look clean, so clean them up before you sew them on. To make the ruffles, I just used a basting stitch along my trim edge, and then I pulled it tight. At one point, I ended up just basting and then gathering as I went, but I had to make sure that I didn't catch the stretchy lace underneath. So make sure you go really slow when you're doing your ruffle layers, but it should go by quick once you get that first one done. As you can see, it looks pretty good with the first layer here, and then I just moved on to the next 2. To make it do that asymmetrical thing, I actually used a gathering thread that I ran through all 3 layers and just pulled it up, but you can also run a channel and stick a ribbon in it and tie it up the same way. Moving on to the top, it's actually way easier than you think. It is a 20-inch rectangle in width by however long you want to make it. I made mine 40 inches around, but you can make it bigger or smaller because we are going to use elastic to ruche it and make it into a stretchy fabric. I did notice that Harry Styles had like a nude lining underneath, so I am using a nude tulle, but you could use whatever you want to go under. Just use your lace to make your pattern piece. From there, I just added my black lace to the top, and then using the guides on my machine, I did 1-inch line stitches all the way down to the bottom. This is where we are going to place our elastic. On the original Gucci dress, they actually used a shirring effect, which is an elastic thread, but I don't have any of that. On hand, it's pretty specialty, so I am just using elastic, and the best elastic to use is 1/8 of an inch. but I kind of finagled all my elastic pieces together. I did not have enough of the 1/8. It is important to pull evenly when you are stitching down your elastic so you don't catch any of the gathers from the other elastic pieces in when you're sewing. You're also going to want to make sure there are no gathers when you sew your top to the bodice, so make sure you're stretching that elastic. I then went ahead and added the black belt to the piece, and this is what it ended up looking like. I then went in and hand sewed the ribbons on the top. It just needs a blazer, but this is my DIY creation of the Harry Styles Gucci dress. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do.